Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Preserving History and Democracy. I'm Cynthia Mendoza, Communications Coordinator for the Doña Ana County Clerk's Office, and I am joined by my lovely producer/friend, Bernardine Caporale. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Isn't it crazy to think that this is the last episode of Season 3?
And an exciting episode it is because we get to recap everything we've done this season. And I have to tell you, I'm very proud of our work this season.
I am too. We did
put
great.
Together a great bunch of podcasts.
Right.
Very informative, entertaining, and special.
I agree. And we had some incredible guests. So like you said, we're going to recap every episode, talk about some of our favorite moments, and yeah, let's get into it.
So if you hear something today that you may have missed, go back and check out our, we're on all the sites.
Yes, check us out. So let's go ahead and start with the primary election recap. So the primary election was back in June, right? June. So we kind of just talked about what happened for the election season. It was low turnout. We did have about 14,000 people vote here in New Mexico, or here in Doña Ana, I should say, for that election, which was about 11%, which is kind of sad, but you expect those for primary elections.
Right. Primaries, you don't get the turnout.
Yeah, we only had a few contested races, so I think that one was the reason why. But yeah, we also in the rest of the season we kind of talked about the general election, which was the big one, and we'll get into those a little bit later.
Was the big one.
Definitely. Yeah. So let's get into the next episode, which was the 2024 interns episode.
It's nice to have young blood in here.
It was.
Yeah.
So these were some of our interns. I believe we had Paris and Israel to join us for that one. And we talked about several topics, including gun violence. And we talked about just the shape of, I guess, the future and what they thought was going to happen in the future if they were worried. And I was very surprised to hear them say that they're not worried, that they know that the economy is not the best right now, but they're going to work hard to make sure that they can create a better future for us.
It's amazing, the spirit of the young people. That's why it's very exciting to have these interns in our office. They're endless energy and positive outlook on life is contagious.
It is. And I love these episodes with the interns because they just offer a new perspective. And I guess when you're older, maybe you get kind of, I don't know.
Jaded?
Yeah, that's a good word for it. And so I think it was nice hearing these kids talk about how hopeful they are for the future of America.
Right. It's important to maintain the hope even when things are bleak.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and insert some highlights from that episode. We do voter registration drives for high schools, and sometimes it seems like your generation's not as interested in elections. So what do you think is something we can do to kind of interest you guys in that and kind of show you the importance of it?
I feel like...
Might be a tough one.
Yeah.
No, I feel like kids these days, there's not much you can do to convince them. They're more concerned with their phones or with their friends, or I don't think you can bring them.
Darn.
So. I feel like it's them lacking a lot of knowledge, and there has been a lot of things where stuff that we're taught is mostly one-sided based on what we perceived it. And I feel like that discourages a lot of teenagers that what we're doing is wrong or it's fake or we don't know the full truth. So they're just kind of I don't want to be involved in that. So I feel like that's what the major issue is.
Okay, so it's not us.
Yeah, I feel like it's the misinformation that's being told.
Which is crazy because we tell a lot of kids your age too, you guys are outnumbering us.
Yeah.
So you guys have a lot more power than we do when it comes to
If your generation voted, it would be a completely different country.
Oh, yeah.
And it's crazy because I hear from a lot of younger people, well, there's a lot of old people in politics. Well, you guys have the power to change that.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
So the next episode we want to talk about is the Jacob Shoblin, and that included our special guest, Teddy Moreno.
Yeah, she's the library specialist with the Archives and Collections Department at NMSU. Beautiful woman to have as a guest. She's very knowledgeable, and she brings these topics, and she was a guest twice this year. This season, I should say, with excellent topics, and Jacob Shoblin was one of them. Tell us a little bit about Jacob.
Yeah, so Jacob Shoblin, I believe he was from Germany, right? He was a German immigrant, and he came here. He owned some businesses. He helped New Mexico become a land-grant university.
Yeah, he was very generous. He granted all this land to the university And we know what happened from there. It's still ongoing today.
Yeah, still going strong.
And that property, we found deeds for it and everything else. It was a great episode.
Yeah, and I was very surprised by how much we've never heard about Jacob Schoblin before until Teddy came and told us so much about him.
It's something that when I researched last season for the university, it was a name that did not come up, yet he granted so much land to the university for the agricultural department and so forth. And it seems that he was a quiet, generous person.
Yeah, absolutely. So that was a great episode. I wasn't here for that one. I think I was sick or one of my kids was sick. So I was sad to miss it, but hearing it back and getting to watch it back here on YouTube, it was, I just love Teddy's passion for this
she
topic.
brings a lot of life to the topics that, otherwise were undiscoverable.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Jacob needs his recognition. Not our Jacob. He does too, but Jacob Schoblin, he needs his recognition for doing what he did to contribute to what New Mexico State University is now.
Here's a short clip from the episode on Jacob Schoblin with Teddy Moreno. But it's interesting, all that research I did for that topic, and his name just did not come up for me.
No. And Hiram Hadley, even when I went through Hiram Hadley's papers, I thought surely there's something in there because I see Hiram Hadley's name in the same newspaper articles as Jacob Schoblin sometimes when they got the college incorporated. In fact, in 1888, July, they went to Santa Fe and they went to go get the college incorporated, and Jacob Schoblin was there. So was Hiram Hadley. His name is misspelled in the newspaper as Herman Hadley, but he was there. John McPhee was there, and but in Hiram's papers, he never mentions Jacob Schoblin. He'll say John McPhee, William Waddell, William Ryerson, and other people. He doesn't say his name. He does not say Jacob Schoblin, so I'm not really sure. There must have been something, that made him not want to say his name. I'm not sure.
Or maybe Jacob Schoblin preferred it that way. I mean, what a generous soul.
Yeah, it could have been. It could have been that. You really don't know what the backstory is, but you don't because there's not a lot written about it. And as I tell you a little bit more about Jacob, you'll see why he's kind of lost in history.
So the next episode we want to talk about is the Albert Fountain episode. Do you want to kind of give us a little snippet of what that was about?
Sure. Albert Fountain and his son are victims of a murder. It remains the most unsolved murder in Doñana, and I think New Mexico as well.
Yeah.
It's something that is close to us because he left from Mesilla and made his way up north, and upon his return, he and his son were murdered, and there's a whole lot of political investigations because he was a lawyer, and he was prosecuting some famous people, and there's thoughts and theories that perhaps he was killed because of his stance.
Yeah, I mean, when you're kind of like a lawman like that, you make some enemies along the way.
Yes, you do. And that episode delves deep into the nuances of what was going on at that time and who are likely
some suspects.
Suspects, yes. It was a great episode.
That stands out the most to me about that episode. We were just kind of recapping it too. He dressed as a woman, and that's how he got out of jail in Nicaragua, right? He was a journalist, I believe, at that time.
He was a journalist, and I think it was Guatemala?
Okay, one of those.
Yeah, it's Central America.
Yes.
And he was doing a story, and in order to escape from probably a sure death because of being discovered, he dressed as a woman and got out.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it worked.
It worked.
He must have been a really pretty woman.
He must have been a gorgeous woman.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, we know him from the Fountain Theater as well. He was the founding family for the Fountain Theater, and I highly recommend that too because they get some independent films down there and historical stuff, which is what we're into.
Yeah
gotta
check it out.
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever been before.
Yeah,
but we'll go ahead and insert a clip from that episode right here.
In 1888, Fountain defeated Albert Bacon Fall, a fellow lawyer, in the race for New Mexico territorial legislature. We have an article from the Las Cruces Rio Grande advocating for Fountain's nomination dating November 3rd, 1894. At the same time, Fountain was investigating and prosecuting cattle rustlers. Oliver Lee was one of the suspects, and his lawyer was Albert Bacon Fall. Lee and his buddy William McNew were being prosecuted in Lincoln County with the assistance of Albert Fountain. On February 1st, 1896, Fountain and his son Henry were on their way back from assisting in the prosecution of charging Lee and McNew. They never made it back to Mesilla. Their wagon was discovered near White Sands in the desert with 2 pools of blood. Mystery.
So the next episode I want to talk about is the Bernardo de Miera y Pacheco with Troy Ainsworth, and I love having Troy on.
Oh, Troy is an excellent guest.
Awesome.
He makes a map into a whole story.
Yes.
He's an amazing guy, great speaker, well spoken. We talked about this gentleman who was so good at everything, Bernardo de Miera y Pacheco. He was a drawer, a geologist, a cartographer.
Yeah, and I had no idea what that was until this episode, I think.
I remember that from like second grade. But he was an amazing man, and he was from Spain, and with the conquest in the area, he worked on map making. And Troy brought us one of his original, I shouldn't say original.
Right.
Troy brought us a copy
Right.
of one of his works. And it was so interesting to me. I have it in my cubicle right now.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it is cool.
I think one of the things that stood out to me the most about that episode was there was like a little family drawn on the map.
Yes.
And he kind of drew that from memory too, and it was so detailed that even like the little baby that was in the family, like he had that as well on the map. So it's crazy how you had to improvise without technology back then. You had to draw it all from memory, which is insane. I don't think I could draw anything.
He was quite the artist. He mastered the art of the Las Cruces Mountains, the Organ Mountains.
Right.
Look legit.
Yeah. It was incredible.
Back in the day. Yeah.
And I think in the episode too, Troy even kind of compared it to a modern day map, and it was very accurate to what we see now. So it's pretty incredible stuff. And I don't think I've ever heard of Bernardo before this, so it was pretty incredible hearing about how maps were created before then.
Right. He really did a great job of introducing the topic and how all roads led to Mexico City, which was the center of the Spaniards in the New World.
Right.
Yeah.
It's awesome. And I can't wait to have Troy on for more episodes. I hope we have him for more episodes in season 4 because he's incredible.
He is. He brings a lot of passion to the topics.
Yeah, he knows his stuff for sure. So we'll go ahead and insert some of our favorite clips from that episode right now.
This is a plan of the country, a map of the country along the Rio del Norte, the North River. So it mentions from the Presidio at San Elizario all the way up to the region present-day Socorro, New Mexico. So instead of just saying that, he gives us a nice, very descriptive, detailed dissertation chapter right here. And so one of the things that's kind of interesting is, and this portion of, this is a southern portion of an overall map. There's a second sheet that shows the northern part of New Mexico. So he did these in two separate sheets. The basic information that's encapsulated here is for the Viceroyalty in Mexico City. This is at a period of time here in 1778 in which officialdom is really looking at the Presidio defense system. Where can a Presidio be located in order to defend the frontier? And one right over here, for context and for those who are watching or listening, this little point right here is identified as San Diego, and that is a paraje. That's a campsite on the Camino Real. Everyone who is driven on Interstate 25 heading to Albuquerque from Las Cruces or either direction, when you're at the Border Patrol checkpoint that's north of Radium Springs, right? That paraje is just right there on the west side of Interstate. So if you're heading north, when you pull into the
Border Patrol?
the Border Patrol checkpoint, looking across to the west, looking across Interstate, there is a mesa that is over there. It's a little flat top hill that's really, you can't miss it. It is the only thing in your eye, your view shed. And that is known as either San Diego, San Diego, or Tenuco Mountain.
So our next episode is the Billy the Kid episode featuring David Thomas.
David Thomas, the famous author. If there was one person to talk about Billy the Kid, he was the one. It was a topic I was very interested in doing.
Yeah.
But notably, it was left for season 3 because I didn't feel I could do it justice.
Yeah.
And Dave Thomas came on and was my personal savior that day. Brought us the intricacies of Billy the Kid's life, short life. And again, brought it alive. These guest speakers are just phenomenal.
Yeah, they are. And I think one of the things that stood out the most to me about that episode was he really explained how Billy the Kid wasn't really a violent person. He wasn't really a criminal either. He really just kind of was thrown into this lifestyle and, had to defend himself. And
had to survive, yeah.
I mean, he was an orphan, I believe, at a young age. So he really had to kind of improvise and make light with what he had. And I was just really surprised on hearing, because I think I grew up hearing, oh yeah, he was an outlaw, he was a bad guy, a criminal. Right. But no, he was a lot more than that. So it was a great episode.
And we have an amazing series of comments.
Yes.
On the podcast.
Very colorful comments.
Yes. There's a lot of passionate people here about Billy the Kid.
It's a topic that we're never going to know 100% what happened, but I really appreciate David's commitment to researching the topic and trying to put it's like a puzzle. I think with all these researchers and all the authors that we've had, they describe it almost as putting a puzzle together with the documents that we have in our vault.
Right.
So. And
we always bring the documents out.
Yes.
Unfortunately, there were no documents on Billy the Kid because he didn't own anything and he never married in Doña Ana. But boy, is he a legend in our area.
Absolutely. And I think that's why people are so passionate.
Right.
That's why we're getting those comments, because we're never going to know 100% what happened with Billy the Kid, but it was an awesome topic. So we'll go ahead and insert some of our favorite moments from that episode on here.
His mother died when he was 15 in 1873. And then about a year later, in September of 1874, someone that he knew stole some laundry, some clothes from laundry, and they asked him to hide them, and he did, but he was caught, and he was charged with having stolen the clothes, but we know now that he didn't do the stealing.
That's amazing, because everything I read was his first crime was stealing clothes from a laundromat.
And it was a man named Sombrero Jack that did it. So he was put in a jail there in Silver City, and 2 days later he was able to escape by climbing up through the chimney. So he was 16 at that time, and then he leaves Silver City, which he never returns to when he goes to Arizona. So between the time in which he arrived in New Mexico and the time he left Silver City, a little over a year, he probably wasn't much of an outlaw at that point. It was only after he was on his own at 16 years old and having to survive on his own and having to deal with adults in the Wild West that he developed the ability to defend himself. But he was never a fast gunslinger.
No.
There's oral stories saying, he used to practice for hours so he could draw, but he was never involved in that kind of a fight.
Right, so the next episode we had was the Voter Registration Day 2024 that we had in partnership with ASNMSU at the Corbett Center at the NMSU campus. And I really love Voter Registration Day because we get to talk to younger people about the importance of registering. And we even did something cool on our Instagram page where we asked people who are registering, like, why do you think it's important to vote? And we had some incredible responses. Some of them said, it was they wanted to register because they wanted to make a difference. They wanted to make their voice heard. Some people said, democracy matters, and that's why they did it. So I really love voter registration day, and I think it's something I look forward to every year.
Yeah, it's got to be very exciting to see people on the cusp of that personal power of a vote.
Yeah, I don't think you realize how important it is until you finally vote and you feel your vote make a difference.
Right.
So our next episode that we did was the History IT episode, and that included our special guest, Kristen Gwen Becker from History IT.
That was an interesting episode.
It was.
I didn't know that there was a market for it, but of course there's a market for it. People want to secure their collections.
Exactly.
And she gave us great insight into what she does and in turn what we do here in the vault.
Yeah, it was pretty cool hearing about what they do, and it was kind of cool how that episode came about because one of her marketing members messaged us and was like, "Hey, would you like to have Kristen on your episode?" And we're like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds cool." And she gave us some great insight on how that works, and which is really great.
Yeah, it's interesting because much of our collection is in paper documents.
Right.
And starting to think about what if there's a photo collection, and then we start thinking about Teddy Moreno's collections, and it becomes this very big thing of how do we preserve accurately and be able to access that information when we need to. Yeah,
and I think it brings archiving into the spotlight and how we archive stuff as well, because we've been doing that here as well. And Marissa, she's incredible. She's been working on several projects archiving stuff here in our vault. So we'll have to have her on sometime.
I'm working on
Marissa, if you're listening, come on.
Come on, show up.
Come over here. So I think that was a great episode, just hearing about how they archive things and make special collections for several businesses. And they've done stuff for, I think, sororities and fraternities, and it's pretty awesome stuff. So got to check out their website. So go to historyit.com and check it out. And we'll go ahead and insert some clips from that episode right here. So I guess we can start with asking what inspired you to start archiving and preservation?
Well, I mean, I would say that the inspiration behind what we do at History IT, myself and all of my colleagues, is really our shared mission to save history. That's our hashtag, save history, by making all things truly digital and accessible. And we do that really because we all share the common belief that history is incredibly important, that history, or access to history, and democracy, the other part of your podcast, that those go hand in hand, that access to shared information about the past is critical for our future. So that's really what inspires us all to do what we do every day.
So our next episode was the Nelson Funeral Home episode, which was one of my favorites.
One of my favorites, too.
It was so cool.
Yeah, thanks to Jacob for excellent editing on that one.
Yes.
If you haven't seen it, at the very least, go look
at the intro.
The intro.
It's so cool.
The intro is fantastic.
And of course, that featured our friend Teddy Moreno and Jennifer Olguin. They're with the Rio Grande Special Collections office over there at the Branson Library at NMSU. So it was a pretty cool episode. We got to take a field trip. That was pretty fun.
We did. We shot it on site there, over there at the university. And, not to give away too much about the episode, but the Nelsons Funeral Home was a large book that the family, the Nelsons, kept on their clients. And as we know from here in the vault, sometimes we have spirits that follow the books that we have, the documents that we have.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that for a spooky episode.
It's one of those that you should really check out if you haven't checked it out.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
So cool. And I was just in awe of how much information Teddy and Jennifer have and how well they retain all this information. I don't know how they remember all these things because I'm very forgetful. So I could never.
I think they have a gift for it for sure.
Yeah.
But it's also so interesting. Like one of the facts that they brought up during the episode is we know Griggs Avenue here, and Mr. Griggs was the one who set up all the addresses in town. So
he was a postmaster, right?
Yes, little nuggets of information come out of these our guests' mouths, and it just stays with you.
Yeah, we learned a lot about, it was like a little bit of murder, a little bit of just some really interesting things that
Murder,
happened.
suicide, you name it.
Poisoning.
Yes.
They even left us with some homework on that episode. So.
Yes, they did.
Pretty cool. So we'll insert another clip of that episode right here.
You can see there's a newspaper article there that also lists his name, but at the very front of the book, and there's one thing that I had to get used to doing, working in a library, we like things in order. We're very orderly. We like things in order, alphabetical order especially. We love alphabetical order. So people don't die in alphabetical order. So the books, their names are not in alphabetical order in the index. And so you'll have to turn to the G's, but then you have to scroll through all the names, and scroll's not the right word because we don't scroll with our fingers, but you have to go through each name to make sure that you are looking at the names because they're not in alphabetical order. So you might miss it. So sometimes you have to go through it twice to make sure that you catch those names. And so, it's one thing that we had to remember to do is just don't automatically think the name's not there if it's not at the top.
You really gotta
if the
look.
If Garcia's not up at the very top of the G's, they might be down at the bottom.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Just comparing
details.
the two pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has so much detail here. This person on the left.
Yes.
Has a religion and everything.
Yeah, they had family to fill in their information versus the Japanese man, the unknown Japanese man who didn't have family to fill that out. And you can see the difference in the cost of their funerals, as Jennifer pointed out.
That's incredible.
Yeah, as we went through the different record books, I came across, actually book one is the book that I spent a lot of time with, just because that's a topic on its own. I was going through the pages and I came across back to back 2 entries that were recorded from 2 little boys, or I would say 11, 12-year-old boys. They were struck by lightning and they died, but they were struck by lightning working on the family farm, from what it seemed. So you see different types of deaths, and I would expect it, but back in the day, they would have to help out in the family farm, and just seeing that, I'm like, wow, that's so young, and then working out in the fields, and that's what happens. But those are just 2 that stand out, but there's probably many more there that we can encounter as we go through the pages.
So the next episode we want to talk about is the Mesquite Street episodes with Denise Chavez, and that was a part 1 and part 2. She had so many stories for us.
So many stories about that street, and so many stories about the history of her life.
Yeah.
And the intersection of that street with her mom and her dad and so forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing stuff.
So that episode, we took another field trip for that one. We went to her bookstore, the Casa Camino Real bookstore, of course, on Mesquite, the Mesquite area. So it was so much fun.
It was fun.
I loved it.
She served us cafecitos.
Yes, and pan dulce. Right. It was so cool.
Right.
So.
She made us feel very welcome, and we were welcome.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Like you said, she talked about just kind of Mesquite Street in general, some of her family history, some of the stuff that she's done. And she was in the theater, for example, which was pretty cool. You found a theater episode of her, and that was pretty cool.
That was amazing. We found a document from the newspaper about her as a very young woman in the theater, and we brought that to her. I think it touched her heart.
Yes, I think so too. She made her emotional. The thing that really stood out to me about that episode too was kind of the Grimes family that also lived in that area. They were one of the first African American families here in Doña Ana County, which is pretty incredible how we are kind of discovering the relation between some of these families and the Buffalo Soldiers and Vado, and we also talked about blackdom in a previous season, so it's pretty cool kind of seeing the correlation between all these
the
all these
little
things.
bit of influence from other cultural entities. And I love her story of the Grimes family and how it continues to this day. The reunions and so forth, because her now bookstore was their house.
I love how her bookstore just brings all these people together, because she's kind of talked about stuff that they've done at the bookstore, and it's a very historical site, and you can feel it when you go in there. So I love that bookstore.
You can feel it. You can feel the power from the artwork she displays, and some of the older books are just something to behold. And speaking about books to behold, She has a new book out. It's The Street of Many Stories, which I purchased on our trip and read and absolutely loved the imagery in her book. At one point, she talks about a woman who had dust in her mouth, and I literally could taste that dust with the way Ms. Chavez described that scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was amazing.
I love it. She's an incredible author.
Yeah, she did a little reading for us. So maybe we can show that.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and show that clip right now.
But I'm going to read about Encantada, New Mexico. Encantada Street residents. It's a story about families. It's a story about healing and forgiveness. But I'll just read a little bit about the street. The street is a character, and I'll just read a little page or so. The symbol of rain is there, which means so much to us. The street remembered everything. Once there was no street, only cotton fields. And before that, empty land with tall grass, the height of a man's waist. Once the Rio Grande ran through what was later to become the street and overfilled its banks. There were floods and new arroyos formed. There were years of drought. Animals died without water, and men and women found no shade. Brother killed brother, and women bore children that were stillborn. Hermanos indígenas were butchered by those who would colonize them. A wind blew through the road. Settlers came through here from Mexico looking for gold, a new life. El Camino Real de la Tierra Adentro it was called, the royal road to the interior land. The road became a road of suffering and death. It was called La Jornada del Muerto. The vultures came and ate the carrion. The ancestors flew through the air in the form of crows, and sometimes the sky was dark with the beating of their wings. Sunrises were blindingly beautiful, and the sunsets brought tears to a man's eyes. The land was ancient, undiscovered by anyone except the life that inhabited it, animals giant and frightening. And now the street was inhabited by a few families, all of them like the crows, flapping, cackling, crying. It was a small street. Their lives seemed insignificant, and yet their dreams were immense and filled the darkening sky. And when the night came, the great unrest grew. The street remembered everything. A large remolino came from nowhere and enveloped everything with this blinding, swirling dust. And just as quickly a gentle breeze blew through there and cooled the air. A soft rain followed and washed everything clean. The footsteps, the prints of animals, large and small. Night came, and the creatures rested. The street remembered that it was more than a street. The street remembered the low, guttural, and sensual late-night laughter of men and the soft, warm bodies of the women they embraced. The howl of small children who hadn't gotten their way. The cats that shrieked in the middle of too many nights in heat, and the final gasp of the dying. The street remembered those who crossed over and came back again, and why. It remembered that waist-high water at 3 a.m. in the morning that one year, the freeze that brought anxiety to those who loved the feral animals. It remembered those who left early in the morning in ambulances, never to return. The street remembered the prayers, the petitions to God. Por favor, no me toques, mi hija, hijita, no me dejes morir, por favor, don't let them take me away, don't let me die, por favor, don't let me die. And yes, it remembered the brutal gunshot, ese balazo that took that life and wasted hope, corrupted love. It remembered the blood, the excrement, the joyful twisted sheets full of semen, and the home births of those blessed enough to be born in the brace of family. The memory of it all was the street's essence.
Who remembers now? La calle, the street.
So the next episode that we have, and I should say probably the last episode we had, because we'll touch on the election stuff too, but the last episode we had for the season was the Fabian Garcia episode with Peter Kopp.
He is a very interesting man. He writes stories, writes books, I should say, about places where he's lived. He had a book from up in the Pacific Northwest about hops and the making of beer in a particular valley. I can't remember the name of the valley.
Right.
But then he started writing about Fabian Garcia, and I was browsing online and discovered this man doing his PowerPoint at NMSU. He currently lives in Denver and teaches in Denver, but he had this PowerPoint show and got me hooked, and I took a chance. I just emailed him and said, would you be a guest on our show? And he obliged so nicely of him. Yeah.
No, that was a great episode. I grew up here in Las Cruces, and I've heard the name Fabian Garcia several times, but this was the first time that I think I got to do a deep dive into who he was and how he came about. And we learned a lot about Fabian, including the fact that he was an orphan from Chihuahua, Mexico. So that was pretty cool. It tied into my family's origin. Right? My family's from Chihuahua too, so it was pretty cool hearing he came from struggles. He had a difficult life, a difficult upbringing. So
he did.
It was pretty cool hearing how he made this amazing, empire of green chili. So, or chili in general. Yeah.
Which is amazing to me how he brought color and life to the desert.
Yeah.
But we'll let you listen to that yourselves.
Yes, we'll insert some clips from that episode right here.
An important part of his story is how he overcame the tragedy of his youth to become quite an important character.
And the Cassades were well-to-do?
The Cassades were wealthy folks from the Midwest. They came to the borderlands via California. It's really important so the Cassades live in Mesilla. They were the largest orchardists in the region. And so it's very important. The patriarch Thomas Cassade was dying, and so that's when the matriarch Sarah hires Jacoba and brings her and Fabian in as part of the family, basically. So during his teenage years, not only does Garcia receive his first proper education, he also receives schooling in the real world on the largest orchard in the area. And so he fell in love with agriculture, and particularly horticulture, taking care of fruits and specialty crops like nuts and pecans and all that stuff. So he had these. So another really important part of his childhood was that his grandmother Jacoba took very good care of him. But then Sarah Cassade took him in too. So he had these two strong women in his life that totally shaped who he would become.
Those are the episodes we had for this season when it, I guess, came to recording and filing in our vaults. But we also had some election update episodes here, and those were with me and Caroline. And she's not here today, but those episodes we kind of just talked about the general election and how it was coming about. I think people, and even me, before I worked here, I thought the election was kind of something you did like a month before, maybe.
Right.
But there's so much stuff in the background that's done to make an election happen.
Right.
And I'm so proud of our team for everything they've done and everything they did to make sure this election ran smoothly. And I think
there was a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
We had a big turnout for this election.
We did,
yeah.
Yes. So we had a 61% turnout for this election. And remember, I said in the first, the primary election recap, there was only 11% turnout. Right. So that was 50% more turnout, which was incredible. So we had 85,809 Doña Ana County residents cast their ballot for this election, which is pretty incredible.
That is.
It's awesome. So
and there were a lot of same-day registrations.
Yes. So
that was something I was working on that day.
Yes, that was a busy day. I think every election, this is my third election I've working here, and that one was busy. And usually it's busy because for my job, I, talk to reporters, schedule interviews with Caroline or Amanda. But that day was more busy because we had so much same day registrations that I even hopped on for a while.
You did,
and I had to do same day registrations too,
Right.
because it was just so. I think we had about 3,000 just on election day.
On election day, right.
So, and our whole team was just, they were ready to help out with that, which was amazing. And it was a long night.
It was a long night, but you know, what a good feeling after everything is said and done to know that it was secure.
Yes.
It was honest. It was a lot of work,
Yeah.
and we achieved our goal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so county canvassing happened on I want to say the 18th of November, the 15th of November. So it was a few weeks back ago. And I got to go to that meeting, and it was amazing to hear the community come out and say, thank you, Doña Ana County Clerk's
That
Office.
was so moving.
Did you see it online?
I did.
It was amazing. So it was great to hear from community members that, sometimes when you work in elections, you have, people who doubt
Right.
the validity of what we do, but it was great to hear our community come out and support us. And
Right.
yeah, so it was amazing.
Well done.
Yeah, we did great. I was so proud of our team, and I'm looking forward to the next election.
Right.
I need some time, but obviously.
Yes, recovery time.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and now it goes to state certification, which is going to be on the 26th. So
it's
watch out
not
for
over
that.
yet.
No, not yet. It's not over until all that happens, the state certification. So once that's done, then I think we're done.
Okay.
So that was a great wrap to the election season that we had. It's a whole year thing. It's crazy.
It is crazy. I asked one of the girls that works in elections this morning, I said, are you very busy? And she said, yes.
They're still busy.
I said, what do you mean you're busy? The election's over. I was kind of teasing her.
Yeah.
And she's like, I had to stack this. And she shows like 1.5 feet.
Well,
I
now
had a
they got to
stack
do all
go
that
through.
paperwork through
Yes.
same day registration. So we
Yes.
still have to proof it and file it. And it's a process. I don't think you don't understand until you work in elections.
Right.
You see all this back stuff.
Right.
And I think that's even what some election workers were saying at the county commission chambers, that, if you have any doubts in how the election system or our election process works, work an election and you'll
Right.
really find out how it works.
Find out what it is.
So I encourage anybody who wants to work an election to check it out and try it out. So thank you, Bern, for an incredible season.
It was.
Wasn't it
I
awesome?
love this season.
Me too.
Yeah, hard to beat, but we're going to do that next
Yes,
season.
we got this. We're going to come up with some great topics and
Right.
hopefully have more community members out here and
Right.
have some team members from our clerk's office here, hopefully. We
Hopefully,
might have to bribe
Marissa.
them a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think it'll be fine. But I'm really excited to see what season 4 brings.
I have a couple of things in my back pocket.
Ooh.
So not giving anything away yet because nothing is secured.
Yeah,
But looks like it's going to be interesting.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
It's going to be a great season. So watch out for that new season coming out in hopefully January 2024. We're not sure exactly when, but late January, early February. It's going to be another great episode. So I want to say thank you to Caroline Zamora, our chief deputy clerk, who does some of these episodes with us as well.
Yes, she does.
She's a very busy woman, so I
Yes.
really appreciate when she's able to come on the episodes with us.
Right.
And Amanda, too, she was on the ticket this past election, so she couldn't be on any of our episodes, but hopefully she'll be here for the next one.
Right.
So
Right.
we're excited to
We
have
welcome her back.
Absolutely, anytime. And then I also want to thank Jacob Slaughter behind the cameras, who does an incredible
Jacob.
job. He produces these episodes, he records them, edits them, puts them all together, makes them look incredible.
Beautiful.
So
Yep.
thank you so much, Jacob, for all you do.
And the last person I want to thank personally is all our listeners who put up their thoughts and comments. And if you enjoy our podcast, I'd say recommend us to a friend. Yeah, we'd like to expand into the community a little bit more. There's
Absolutely.
a lot of stories in Doña Ana County.
I agree.
And tell a friend.
Yeah, and then
Or
if you
two.
have any recommendations on episodes too, maybe there's stuff that we don't quite know about, but you can email us at daclerk@gmail or at doñanacounty.org and give us some suggestions. So
Yeah,
let us
if you
know what
wanna
you want to hear.
about something that happened here in Doña Ana County.
Absolutely.
Send it to us,
And
we'll do
we
the research.
are down for field trips. I mean,
Yes, we
depending
like
how far it
field
is, but
Yeah.
we're down for field trips. So yeah, email us at daclerk@gmail. Why do I keep saying Gmail? Email us at daclerk@doñanacounty.org and let us know some feedback and give us some suggestions. Yeah, we're happy to hear it. So that does it for this episode of Preserving History and Democracy. I'm Cynthia Mendoza, Communications Coordinator. I'm here with Bernardine Caporale, our producer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.